Extra Time on Tip FM, powered by Munster Solar, your local solar experts, delivering clean, cost-effective energy solutions for a brighter tomorrow. See munstersolar.ie.
And you're very welcome along to Extra Time with myself, Paul Carroll, on this Monday, the 9th of March 2026. Of course, filling in for Ronan Quirke today as we look back on the weekend's sporting action here in Tipperary. Of course, when we were planning this show late last week, we would have been thinking we were going to be looking back on Tipperary versus Waterford in the National Hurling League. But of course, due to the untimely passing of Benny Kiley, the father of Michael Kiley, Waterford senior hurler, that game was postponed and has since been refixed for next Sunday at 2 o'clock in Azori Walsh Park in Waterford. So we pass on all our condolences to the Kiley family there on the passing of Benny. But plenty of sport did happen across Tipperary over the weekend, and over the course of the next hour we will be looking back on all of that. So we're going to begin with hurling, and we're going to look at Nenagh CBS versus St. Kieran's College Kilkenny in the Croke Cup semi-final. This took place on Saturday afternoon in Rathdowney, and an agonising defeat for Nenagh CBS. They conceded the last 1-5 of the game. They led pretty much all the way through and were beaten 2-18 to 2-15 by St. Kieran's College Kilkenny, with a last minute goal by Kieran's substitute Dan Carroll, which came about 3 or 4 minutes into additional time. So really, really disappointing defeat for Nenagh CBS. And just before we play this audio from Nenagh CBS manager Donnacha O'Donnell, if you do want to get in touch with the show, text or WhatsApp 083 311 3311. And if you think you've seen any sports performances worthy of nomination for a Sports Star of the Month, then send your nominations to sportstar@tipfm.com, and that is all in association with the Talbot Hotel in Clonmel and Quirke Trophies Limited. So back to the Nenagh CBS game, agonising defeat. Myself and Shane Brophy from the Nenagh Guardian caught up with Nenagh CBS manager Donnacha O'Donnell on full time.
It is, yeah. It's just when you feel you're left behind, you know. We were ahead for 60 minutes, and you know, we didn't score for the last maybe 7 or 8 minutes, you know. They scored 1-3 in injury time. You know, it's just one you have a lot of regrets about. Yeah,
it's the second time in a row Kieran's have done that in the last couple of weeks. It just shows you that they play it to the end. And do you think maybe their extra bit of power they had stood to them in the closing stages?
Absolutely. I think our fellas physically were struggling with them, you know. They were coming out of tackles and coming out of rucks particularly, which is kind of nearly a trademark for us, you know. And I think that, again, that added up as you're going into your last 10-15 minutes, you know. Like, our fellas were really pushed hard and were on their last legs at that stage, you know.
I suppose up to then, like, you out-hurled them. Like, I thought your hurling was crisper. You're probably unlucky not to be further ahead at half-time or even by 5 at the start of the second half.
Yeah, that's exactly what we felt. And even going into the last injury time nearly, I thought we were going to be comfortable, you know. And I think it's, again, that physicality and that, you know, they won 3 or 4 balls there in the air and walked up through us, you know. Physically it's very hard to deal with, and in fairness to them, they stayed with it right to the very end, you know.
Difficult dressing room, I'd imagine, after what kind of mood was in there. What can you even say to the lads? I'm sure they're devastated after that.
It was one of the worst dressing rooms I've seen, to be honest with you. A lot of tears in there and a lot of fellas disappointed, and you know, but they're just such a good bunch of lads, and they're really a pleasure, you know, to deal with. And I was so proud of them on and off the field, around school. Anytime we went anywhere, there was compliments about their behaviour and the way they acted and held themselves, you know. So yeah, they're just devastated.
Does that make it doubly hurt, was to see Kieran snatch that after maybe some of the stuff that went on this week behind the scenes, and that they got rewarded for it? And it's tough, like, and you don't want to use it as an excuse or sour grapes or anything like that.
It is, yeah. Again, we try to block it out as much as you can, and you know, we told them to stay off social media now for the last week or so, and they did, in fairness to them. And yeah, it's unfortunate, but this was life, really, isn't it?
Overall, like another, I suppose, cruel to think that it happened twice in the same manner as 2 years ago. But like for the year you've had, Harty Cup winners, like it's bittersweet, I'd say, at the moment, is it?
Yeah, it is, absolutely. And again, what I said, sometimes you have to look back on the good times, and to win a Harty is no mean feat, you know. I think there's probably a bit of an advantage, the fact that in Leinster it's Kieran's or Kilkenny CBS come out every year, and Connacht is the same, you know. I think there's only 3 or 4 clubs in it, schools in it. Whereas we were, I suppose, on the road since, I know it's not an excuse, but we were every game we went out, we had a battle, you know, and maybe it took our toll mentally as well as physically, you know.
Just remember the injury time where your goalie looked like he was taken out. Were you frustrated not to get a free there, or what was there any explanation from the ref of why he didn't award a free?
Like I don't understand. You've got 4 umpires, 2 linesmen and a referee, and none of them saw anything, you know. And I thought it was as plain as day, but again, maybe look back in the video, you'll see it a bit clearer. But yeah, it was, and like it's. If you hit a strike with the hurley to the face, is a red card. And you know, and at that stage in the game, it should have been, I think. But again, I don't understand how. All those people, none of them saw. Even the far umpires didn't see it. Like, apparently, so a bit frustrating.
That's a frustrated Donnacha O'Donnell speaking to myself and Shane Brophy from the Nenagh Guardian after his Nenagh CBS team were beaten 2-15 for Nenagh CBS, 2-18 for St. Kieran's College Kilkenny. Shane Brophy joins me on the line now. Shane, you can hear the frustration there when we were speaking to Donnacha O'Donnell, but the sense of disappointment was probably the overarching kind of feeling after that game.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It must have been good 30-40 minutes before they came out of the dressing room, and in fairness to some of the teachers and some of the supporters, like, they waited to give them an ovation coming out. It was like they just lifted out on the field. It's just cruel luck, and I was trying to think of a similar occurrence. So we can understand how probably the Offaly supporters felt when we came with a late burst in the 2022 All-Ireland minor final. Like, it's just one of those things where Kieran's just got their purple catch right at the end, and like there was just no time for Nenagh to respond. It's just cruel on the team. Like they were the better team for so long, but they just got no reward for it.
Yeah, and I made the point as well on commentary that losing the semi-final of this competition is probably worse than losing the final, because if you win the semi-final, you at least get to play in Croke Park, and whatever happens in the final in Croke Park, you can always say you played there. So that probably fed into that sense of disappointment, given the nature of the defeat as well, conceding the last 1-5 in the last 7 or 8 minutes of the game.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that carrot is massive. Like, and since they've moved them, I suppose that now has that date back in Croke Park now again, and like they'd love to have won the Harty and the Croke Cup in the 1 year. And like when Joe Dwyer got that goal and they moved 2-15 to 1-13 in front, you just didn't see Kieran's winning the game. They were hanging in without, you'd say, I suppose, maybe threatening to get any closer, but like as you put it to Donnacha, there was the one thing we looked at in build up to the game was how big that Kieran's team was, and while it didn't play its part maybe early in the game, definitely as the match wore on, like they started to win more and more possession, particularly in that half back line, and like they just wore Nenagh down, and the likes of David Byrnes came storming into it, Jake Mullen, and Ben Nevin at the lefty, a cornerback. He got that point off the throw-in ball after Paddy McCormick. It's hard to understand how he wasn't given a free out.
Yeah.
He done well to scoop the ball away, but as he was clearing the ball, he was taken out. Like, it was clear as day. Like, it just any bit of the breaks just didn't go with Nenagh towards the end. Even the way that the last goal where the ball comes into the square and it just dies as it hits the ground. Like ordinarily, a ball like that would just hop on. I think Paddy McCormick was half expecting it to hop into his hand. It didn't. It died straight at the feet of Dan Carroll, and he stuck it in the net. Like, so, just every break in that last few minutes went to Kieran's. And in fairness to them, like they stuck at it. Like, it's a Kilkenny team. I think I said it online. Like, you haven't them beat until they're on the bus home, and they just, as they did in the quarter final when they scored 2-7 without reply. They came up 1-5. Like they definitely have serious stamina work done with that group of players.
Yeah, for sure. And you could see by some of them that David Byrnes at number 6, who has played for the Kilkenny senior team in the National League this year, he looks like he could have been tugged out with Ireland in the rugby the other night as a back row or something, a pure athlete. But for Nenagh CBS, a disappointing end to what was an incredible campaign when you look back on it. They kind of beat a who's who of the top kind of college hurling teams in Munster throughout the year. The likes of Ardscoil Reach, St. Flannan's Ennis, Thurles CBS, Middleton. It was a really, really good year, but just to end it on that note is always kind of difficult. But as an overall reflection, still kind of positive signs for Tipperary underage hurling.
Oh, absolutely. You could say like four Harty Cups in a row for Tipperary schools, and like it just shows how hard it is to win in All Ireland, and especially for the Munster teams. Like you have a 16-team competition in Munster. You have to beat some very good schools to come out of it, and as Donald O'Donnell said there, you could nearly fairly be certain that Kieran's College and Pres Athenry and probably Loughrea will be in the All Ireland quarter final next year. You couldn't, likelihood say which two teams will come out of Munster next year, and I suppose that's the brilliance of the Harty Cup, and I suppose that's maybe the thing that holds maybe some of those teams back from winning an All Ireland. Like they really have to go through the mill from October onwards. But it's been a brilliant campaign for Nenagh to win a second Harty in 3 years. Like they played some outstanding hurling on Saturday too. Like Dermot Fogarty, cornerback, I thought was outstanding. Joe O'Dwyer, a corner forward, like he's just an absolute man of the match, just an absolute menace all through. Ian Tucker, who was taken off in the Harty final, you think maybe would he be vulnerable maybe to not starting, scores 1-2, he was tremendous. And that's the one thing about this Nenagh team, and maybe on a day where maybe a player doesn't shine and he maybe has a difficult day, they bounce back the next day. And we see in the likes of Killian Healy coming straight into the starting lineup in the middle of the field last day. He had featured very, very little in the up to that. Like there's no doubt there's a serious depth to building in Nenagh. Like they've created their own tradition over the last couple of years. It'll be interesting to see can they continue this ability to contend year in year out now going forward.
Yeah, because of course that group kind of came through the Dean Ryan Cup a couple of years as well with the likes of Owen Duhan and all those. But it's St. Kieran's College Kilkenny who go marching on to the All-Ireland final, and they'll play Presentation College Athenry in the final on St. Patrick's Day up in Croke Park. But elsewhere, Shane, of course the Tipperary and Waterford National Hurling League game was postponed, as we said, due to the untimely passing of Benny Kiley in Waterford, but it's going to be on next Sunday at 2:00. So, obviously this is all secondary to the reason it was postponed and things like that. But for Tipperary, just a bit of a reshuffle in terms of preparations and planning for the couple of weeks. But it's the same as it was, back down to Walsh Park next Sunday. Absolutely.
I would have thought that maybe next weekend Tip would have probably tried to get a challenge match in. So like it's worked out in terms of being better, in terms of that it'll be a full competitive game. And I suppose for both sides, they know exactly what they're chasing now next weekend. Like if Tipperary are victorious, they're safe for another year in Division 1A, and potentially if they go and beat Kilkenny, they could maybe sneak into a final, although it'll take a serious set of results for that to happen. And like Waterford need to win to have a chance of staying up. Like they would have to wait and see how the final round of games go before they'd be certain. And I think a draw probably wouldn't be a bad result for Tipperary either. So but their score difference is so healthy. So yeah, they'll be going down there knowing exactly what they have to do. And I suppose the interesting thing will be whether either management maybe changes their starting lineup, as like they don't have to stick with the starting 15 they named last Friday. They can shake it up, and I thought it was interesting that the Tip managers are still going down the having a look at players like Kevin McCarthy and Stephen Tobin were set to make their first senior starts, and so like they weren't completely selling out and trying to go down with an experienced team to win. Like Jason Ford were named to come back in, and Robert Doyle back from injury. This was the key one. Ronan Maher, we're going to get to see him the first time in this campaign as well. So it'll be interesting to see whether either management tweaks things over the next week, whether maybe the extra 6 or 7 days will have given maybe certain players, maybe the likes of Michael Breen. I'm not sure how close he was to coming back, whether he'd be the extra week will have done him maybe the chance of better chance of playing maybe this weekend.
Yeah, and for Waterford, Stephen Bennett, just reading some reports, seems to have gotten a hamstring injury, so unclear if he'll be ready to come back for that game next Sunday. But frustratingly, Shane, I suppose in one sense it's on the exact same time as the footballers travel up to Wicklow, travel up to Aughrim to play Wicklow in what is a really big game in Division 4 of the National Football League. And I know selfishly for ourselves here on Tip FM, trying to broadcast both games is going to prove very difficult, if not impossible now. But that is a little bit of a frustrating one that they're on the exact same time, but lack of lights and things like that in Walsh Park all probably playing into that.
Yeah, and I think the Waterford footballers are playing at the same time, I think, in Dungarvan as well on Sunday. So like I suppose when you get postponements like these, it's not ideal in terms of, I suppose it's never ideal in terms of when they can slot back in, even with like Waterford and Tip was due to being on television yesterday.
No, we seem to have
their picks for the football weekend. But like I think it'll definitely be. I wouldn't be surprised if it'll be an extra bit of bite to it. It's just with like neither team will want to go down to Division 1B, and like even for county boards, like financially the national leagues are very, very beneficial, and staying up in 1A will stand them in the long run.
Yeah, and another final thing I wanted to mention, Shane, during the weekend, John Fogarty in the Irish Examiner brought out an article about kind of new rules and regulations that the GA are looking at bringing in regarding streaming, and I think we can all agree that the advent of streaming of Gaelic games, particularly after COVID, has certainly improved our viewing experiences and added to our GA viewing throughout club and county, but particularly with club action. Some of the lines of these regulations would be the likes of only GA approved branding would appear. All streaming requests must now be made 6 weeks in advance, and GA units are not permitted to stream a match at the same time as any national broadcast partner coverage. That's very, very broad, and if you were to take those lines literally, you're kind of looking at a situation where a club game up in Tyrone, a club football match in Tyrone or something, could be on RT of a Saturday evening during the club season, and that means no streaming of any of the Tipperary club games on Club or wherever because of that. I find it very hard to see that coming in at all, so it's hard to know what to make of that.
Yeah, I just wonder. I think they're just proposals for the moment. I just wonder where the kind of half leaked, maybe just to test the water to see how they would be taken on. But like some of them, like you'd have to see, as you mentioned there, about if there was a club game in another county and at the same time that they could say Clubber couldn't show matches in Tipperary. Like, I think that's very, very draconian. Like, because like everybody in their own county is more concerned with their own. Like, so like I'd be surprised if something like that was going to be able to be enforced. Like the 6 week fixture notification, like that's nearly impossible to do, because like especially like the Tipperary, like our 3 group stage matches will be done inside 6 weeks. You wouldn't even know who would be in the county quarter final 6 weeks later. So that's the early difficulty. I just think it smacks to me of a bit of too much of a professional approach, like in terms of how, I know TG Cahir and RT have had difficulty over the last maybe year or two, maybe when they've approached certain county boards to show games, and county boards have said that they've licensing agreements with their own streaming, priority with their own streaming services. So I know it's something that David Byrnes, the president, mentioned late last year, that they wanted to get some streamlining in that. So I'm kind of surprised maybe that, and it'd be interesting to see how does that work with maybe existing agreements with a county board and a streaming provider, like, or how watertight they are, and maybe there could be some agreement came to that if TG Cahir or RT did approach a county board to show a game that their priority will come first, and that maybe if there's maybe a financial penalty, maybe a payment given to maybe the clubber in case they were losing out or something, maybe that could be looked into. Like it just seems that the G are kind of maybe bringing a lot of trouble on themselves for very, very little reward. Like the one thing, the advent of streaming, maybe the one positive out of COVID was the advent of streaming and how popular it's been, but as we've seen, it's very, very hard to put the toothpaste back in the tube when people get so used to streaming. If you start to reduce the ability for them to see games, they're not going to be very, very happy about it.
Yeah, and people are actually asking for more when it comes to coverage of, and particularly on GA Go and things like that. That if we could see more of the lower division games, and that's always an issue coming up. And sometimes I've made the point before, particularly around ticket sale price increases, that sometimes we just need to remember that we're an amateur association and a community-based association, and not so much of a business. But that's a conversation for another day. As always, Shane, really appreciate of your time, and thanks for joining us on the show.
Pleasure.
That's Shane Brophy, Head of Sport at the Nenagh Guardian.
Extra time on Tip FM, powered by Munster Solar, your local solar experts, delivering clean, cost-effective energy solutions for a brighter tomorrow. See munstersolar.ie.
Now to talk camogie, delighted to say joined on the line by Tipperary camogie P.R.O. Geraldine Cannan. Geraldine, how are you?
Good, Paul, yeah.
Yeah, great to have you on, Geraldine. And looking back on the weekend, good few Tipperary camogie teams in action, but we'll start with the seniors. Unfortunately, it was a loss to Galway in the RAG. The All-Ireland champions Galway 113 to Tipperary's 12 points. It was actually Galway's first win of the league campaign, surprisingly enough, after 2 opening round defeats. But a disappointing one, I suppose, for Tipperary.
Yeah, I suppose, look, Galway were really up for this game, having lost their opening 2 rounds. I suppose they really needed a win. It was a really tough physical game. I just think the physicality of camogie has gone through the roof really in the last couple of years with a few rule changes. And I thought, Tipperary really stood up to the physical test. They had the advantage of the wind in the first half, went 6 points to 1 up. You really had to earn every score, but got some lovely scores. Then I suppose Galway got a goal probably against the run of play a bit, and this kind of lifted them and I suppose spurred them on. So look, we only went in 1 point up with the advantage of the wind, which probably wasn't enough. And look, it was a very competitive, it was good second half, very competitive, but Galway got a run at us then early in the second half, couple of unanswered points, and I suppose deserving winners in the end. But I suppose Tip will be disappointed to look back at a few mistakes, a few missed opportunities. Definitely the game was definitely there. I suppose the draw was definitely there and possibly even a win. But there was plenty of positives for James Heffernan, but I suppose a few key mistakes probably proved crucial in the end.
And yeah, looking at it and reading match reports and things, Galway scored 5 straight points to start the second half. So, that really puts Tipperary on the back foot.
Yeah, certainly, and look, they had the advantage of the wind, and I suppose Tip regrouped again, got some nice scores, Ian McGrath from frees and different things. Cleve Stakelum got a good point in the second half as well, but I suppose probably didn't create enough scoring opportunities as a whole throughout the game, and just seemed to have to work that bit harder, further scores compared to Galway. But look, it's early stages, yes, still getting a chance, I suppose, for James to look at the panel of different players, but it does look like unlikely now that we'll, I suppose, progress to knockout stages of the league, but have 2 tough games to come. Cork, who bounced back with a big win at the weekend, their first, and then we have to play Waterford as well, who seem to be flying it, won all their games so far. So look, I suppose 2 tough tests to come, Cork away as well, so but look, it's still plenty, I suppose, positives to take from the league as a whole.
Yeah, and looking at the Tipperary team, a lot of new faces, maybe a lot of faces from the junior team a couple of years ago, and we're still in that stage where probably James, as you said, is getting to know all the players, or getting to look at all the players in in league action anyway, and get a look and see what they're like on the team. So there's probably still an element of experimentation going on.
Yeah, look, I suppose no greater test than playing Galway, the All-Ireland champion. So look, certainly some players definitely stood up to that test. Probably maybe question marks over other players. But look, it's early days and judgment's made yet. Players are coming back from injury. Roisin Howard only came on as sub late. She had been out sick all week. Emer Heffernan came on after, she had a long layoff through injury. She only came on as sub as well. So, and players only returning from injury as well. So look, I suppose all the counties will be in the same boat, and there's bigger prizes to come down the line, but come Munster Championship, you really want to, I suppose, have everyone back flying fit and starting to know your championship side.
And have you noticed any kind of differences in the teams, the Tipperary team this year, let's say under new management? Are they trying any kind of new things or style of play that you've seen emerge yet, or still too early for that?
Probably haven't seen different style of play. Maybe just positional switches. I suppose we've seen Caoimhe McCarthy start all the 3 league games at centre back, and Mairead Everson looks as we played at full back. So I suppose that would be a new position for Caoimhe. She would have always been wing back, and Mairead had been centre back last year. So definitely see things like that. Trying out new players. Celine Guinan has been played in the backs in all 3 games and has done really well. So look, she looks like a serious option there, maybe for wing back. She's come up from the under 23 panel last year. Caoimhe Stakeland, then obviously a young player new to the south as well, but has impressed so far in the full forward line. So definitely new players have put their hands up early in the year, and that's what I say James is looking for is some new talent and maybe some new positional, I suppose, changes more so than style of play.
Yeah, and you mentioned it's Cork away next Saturday before Waterford in the final round. And I had a look at the league table earlier today, and there's 4 teams all level on 3 points from 6th place up to 3rd place. Tipperary currently in 3rd place, but on 3 points. So it's very much all to play for with 2 games left, and Antrim's win over Cork early on in the league has put them in that position, even though Tipperary bet Antrim earlier in the campaign. So it's very much all to play for with 2 rounds to go.
Yeah, look, very much all to play for, especially Cork and Galway are only getting their first wins at the weekend. But I suppose from a Tipperary point of view, we'll probably a resurgent Cork and a flying Waterford for their last 2 games. Probably looks like we have probably the 2 of our toughest games left to play. But look, Antrim went to Cork and got a win. There's no reason why we can't go to Cork and get a win. We always do well against Cork in the league. I suppose Cork, probably got a lot of slack after losing to Antrim, and they bounced back impressively last week. They have the Finbars girls back now as well, so look, they're going to be, you'd imagine, a different animal next week down in Cork. And then, like I said, Waterford, I suppose, probably the team of the league so far. So look, certainly two tough assignments to finish with. But look, the panel should be gathering momentum, and as the weeks go on, more and more training, block of training's done. So you'd be hoping that they'll finish the league on a high performance-wise, and whether that'll be enough to pick up points at the end, all the better again.
Yeah, we'll see how that plays out next weekend. Also, the Tipperary under-23s were in action over the course of the weekend and into a Munster final, Geraldine.
Yeah, look, I suppose after the disappointment of Saturday, it was great that the under-23s won on Sunday. They were away to Waterford, and again, a new panel and a new management under Brian Darcy, so it was great to get off to a winning start and through to a Munster final. The All-Ireland Championship starts very early, more or less starts straight away now in April, and it's all over, I think, by May. So, look, they need to hit the ground running, so it's good to get another game in the Munster Championship, and hopefully they can pick up silverware there.
Yeah, that was a 2-12 to 7 point win over Waterford. And finally, Geraldine, the under-16s I saw had a good win over Cork over the weekend in the All-Ireland Championship. So Cork have seemed to have been dominating camogie in the last 10 years or more. So anytime, no matter what age grade, you can get a win over them is a good sign.
Yeah, great sign. Like, this team has gone to Cork twice this year and got wins. They bet them in the Munster semi-final down in Cork, or the Munster final, sorry. And there was a much closer gap between the sides this time. It was, Tipperary was out in front. They got an early goal. Olivia Luby, I think in the first minute, got a goal. They had the wind in the first half, and Cork came right back at in the second half. But there was always kind of that 3 or 4 points between the sides. Really impressive under 16 team, very young under 16 team. I think they finished the game with 11 girls that are underage again next year. So, but look, they're going in the right direction. They've won all their games so far. I think actually they've enough done now to reach All Ireland semi-finals with 2 rounds still to play. So look, that's a really positive, and they are the Munster champions, but obviously a bigger prize at All Ireland, and that's something I suppose is their goal, and they're moving in the right direction. But look, the chances are they could meet Cork again later in the year, and they're every time you play Cork, they're getting better and stronger as well. They probably peak. They're a team that probably peak later in the year. So look, they'll be very wary of them, and obviously Galway as well still to play. So probably 2 of the best, or Galway and Kilkenny, I think, still to play in the championship. So with 2 really strong sides still to play. But look, they're unbeaten, and it's a great position to be in.
Brilliant stuff as always, Geraldine Canana. Thanks for joining us on the show.
Thanks, Paul.
Extra time on Tip FM, powered by Munster Solar, your local solar experts, delivering clean, cost-effective energy solutions for a brighter tomorrow. See munstersolar.ie.
The Tip FM Sports Star of the Month with the Talbot Hotel Clonmel.
David Power is the Tip FM Sports Star of the Month for February. The Kilsheelan native had a busy month of coaching as he took UL to their first ever Sigerson Cup title, helped High School Clonmel to a Munster final, all while managing the Tip ladies footballers in the league. He will now receive a specially crafted piece from Quirke Trophies Limited, which will be presented at our annual award ceremony at the Talbot Hotel in Clonmel. Nominations for the month of March are now open, so send yours to sportstar@tipfm.com.
With the Talbot Hotel Clonmel, get your nominations in now. Tip FM is the place for outstanding news coverage that keeps you informed, engaged and connected. Our team of dedicated journalists work around the clock to bring you the stories that matter most in Tipperary. Don't forget our website, social channels and app for real-time updates on the news that matters most in Tipperary. Your community, your voice, your news. Only on Tipperary's Tip FM.
Extra time on Tip FM, powered by Munster Solar, your local solar experts, delivering clean, cost-effective energy solutions for a brighter tomorrow. See munstersolar.ie.
And you're very welcome back to Extra Time with myself, Paul Carroll, filling in for Ronan Quirke on this Monday, the 9th of March 2026. Now, what a weekend of rugby it was, both locally and internationally. Some really entertaining games in the Six Nations over the course of the weekend, but likewise in the AIL. And to talk through those, I'd like to say joined on the line by Pat O'Donoghue from Cashel RFC. Pat, how are you getting on?
Evening, Paul. How are you?
Yeah, all good. I mentioned the weekend of rugby we had. I'd imagine for a Cashel rugby supporter it was even a better weekend of rugby, with Ireland beating Wales on Friday night. 2 of the best Six Nations games in recent memory on Saturday, and you yourselves had a 73 points to 14 win over Banbridge in what was an important game in Division 2A of the AIL. So a good weekend put down.
Great weekend, Paul, in fairness. Banbridge, in fairness to them, are having a tough season, right? I think the scoreline was a bit flattering to us. First half was tough. Banbridge came at us big time, but in the second half we just powered them out of it. Our back line were on fire. Our forward pack were powerful. They had no answer really in the end, but it's not a nice scoreline for a team like Banbridge, who are a great rugby playing club. But look, you have to play what's in front of you. It's a vital win for us. It's going to take some pressure off us, but we still have to get a couple of points out of the last 3 games to make sure that we're safe. But overall, Paul, it was a massive weekend. We had our Ladies' Day in the clubhouse beforehand. We have it every year. It's just an appreciation for the ladies of the club, with the work they put into their, sons or whoever's playing belong to them. So that kicked off the day. It went really well. The result on the field was brilliant. A couple of great individual performances. Marcel Stridham has scored another hat-trick this week. He got 3 tries last week, got 3 tries this week. Incredible stuff. Alan Flannery, hat-trick as well. My standout man of the match was Adam Shorley. He's a young tight head prop from Ballacalla in Laois. He's been working really hard to establish himself on the team. He actually switched from tight head to hooker to facilitate, the injuries and stuff. But he was my man of the match, and he was awarded the man of the match award afterwards. So, great weekend, Paul, and everything to look forward to next weekend again.
Yeah, for sure. So 73-14 was the score there. And also on Saturday night, I haven't spoken to you about it before, but Rob Carney, who's on the Tipperary under-20s, is affiliated with your own club. I got a few pelters on Twitter for suggesting that he was a Tipperary man, but of course he's from Offaly, but went to school in Roscrea and is affiliated with Cashel.
That's right, yeah. He's himself and his brother came down to us this year. He was playing really well with Cashel all year, and has really established himself as an international at under-20 level. He's shone in all the games he's played in. So it's great for the young lad himself. It's great for Roscrea. It's great for Cashel. And to have fellas like him coming through, is vital for the the long-term good health of the game.
Yeah, and if we look at the AIL now, you've 3 games remaining in the league. You're currently in 7th in Division 2A on 34 points. Correct. That's 9 ahead of Old Crescent, who are in 9th place in the relegation zone. And you have to play Old Crescent, I think, in one of your remaining 3 games. So that would be a big one. But you're also 8 points behind Wanderers in 4th place. So with 15 points to play, you're kind of probably looking over your shoulder towards the relegation in one sense, but with maybe a half an eye on the promotion places still with 3 games to go.
Well, that's the thing, this league is so tight. It's never over till it's over. In fairness to Barnhall, they've achieved promotion. We've Old Crescent next, we've Barnhall after that, and then we've Shannon to finish off. So you never know the way this league could go, Paul. But Crescent, away to Crescent is going to be a huge game for us on Saturday week. The boys are back training tomorrow night. With one thing in focus, and that's to get a win away against Old Crescent to make us secure. And you never know with the remaining 2 games, you could end up in a playoff. Yeah,
but that game against Crescent, as you said, on Saturday of the week, that's the focus, that's the big game, win that, because I suppose the drop this year is maybe more treacherous than the drop in previous years with the changes to Division 2B and 2C coming basically as one next season. It will be much more harder, I think, to get promoted to Division 2A, so kind of retaining that status is got it very important this year.
Well, it is, you see, and you know my position on the restructure. I don't agree with it. I think it's a backward step, but that's for another day. I think that the currency being in the AIL is huge, and the trips up north, fair enough, they cost money, but it's developing the game as an all-Ireland game, if you know what I mean. 32 counties. We go north to Ballymena, Banbridge, Dungannon. We've made great friends over the years up there, and I think it's a backward step, but that's my opinion. 2A will exist for another couple of seasons, I think, but eventually I think the master plan is to have 1A, 1B, and the rest then will play, at lower levels after that. But it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see how it pans out. But our focus is Saturday week.
Yeah, and that is away to Old Crescent in a massive game in Division 2A. Run down through the rest of the weekend's results in the AIL. Nenagh Ormond 31, Terranure 40. So Nenagh Ormond, who are already confirmed relegated now from Division 1A with 3 games to go, but they're also beaten in the Donal Walsh final. That's the under-20s final against Garryowen in Thomond Park, 34 points to 26 on Sunday. So really good performance by Nenagh Ormond to get to that final, and a great game there by the looks of 34-26. And Clonmel have continued their brilliant form in Division 2C, 66 points to 14 winners over Belfast Harlequins in what was Clonmel's 100th game in the AIL. So mixed results there between Nenagh and Clonmel, but Nenagh summoned now to Division 1B next year, but Clonmel absolutely flying it.
Yeah, it's tough on Nenagh. It's very hard, Paul. You know yourself when the monkey's on your back to get him off it.
Yeah.
Nenagh had a couple of great seasons there. But look, it's not the end of the world. They come down to 1B. They can regroup and go again. And that's the type of club that Nenagh are. There's always fighting the dog up there, and they won't give up. Just a big shout out to our own junior ones as well. They went to Fermoy on Sunday. Paul had a big win in the Junior Cup against Fermoy. So that was a great finish off a great rugby weekend in Cashel.
Yeah, and finally, just news today was Brian Gleeson, a Tipperary man, a Lockmore native, added to the Ireland training squad this week with Andy Farrell. So a great moment for him, because he was called into the Ireland squad there before Christmas to go over, or back in November, to go over to the US where they played New Zealand, but then he got injured against Leinster in Croke Park, so he missed out on the chance to go in with the Ireland senior squad. So so important even to get his foot in the door this week.
Well, it's fantastic, and it's a great achievement for a young man. Gleeson has been showing his ability and his quality, for the last couple of years since he was in Ireland under 20, and he's got stronger, he's got fitter, he's got tougher. And I think he's a definite for the Ireland team going forward, because with his speed around the field, his physicality, he's dynamic in everything he does. He thinks fast, and he's massive potential.
Yeah, he's certainly an exciting player to watch. So we'll see how that progresses this week, and wish him the very best luck. Pat, as always, thanks a million for joining us on the show.
Thank you, Paul, and thanks to your listeners.
Brilliant. That's Pat O'Donoghue from Cashel RFC. We are going to switch tack now to the world of horse racing. For horse racing enthusiasts, it's pretty much Christmas Eve tonight, with Cheltenham 2026 getting underway on Tuesday tomorrow. To have a look ahead of Cheltenham, I'd like to say I'm joined on the line by racing analyst David Byrnes. David, how are you?
I'm good, Paul. How are you keeping?
Yeah, all good. It's very much kind of Christmas Eve, as I said, for people who are into horse racing. Always big Tipperary interest when it comes to Cheltenham, but I suppose this year, with no Rachel Blackmore, we're going to have to adjust, because, of course, Rachel retired now, and that's going to be a bit of a change to Tipperary viewers of Cheltenham not being able to turn on any given race and more than likely see Rachel in action.
Absolutely, yeah, but you are right. It's the four biggest days in the National Hunt calendar. Cheltenham, it just creates that excitement. It builds up from the start of the National Hunt season, but from the very first race and right through the season until it comes to the roar for the Supreme Novices at 1:20 on Tuesday afternoon. It's a tremendous couple of days. You've mentioned Rachel Blackmore and the memories that we've had over the last number of years with her on board and so many famous victories. And, this year we've got a couple of interesting Tipperary trained runners entered in races. Mouse Morris also got Patrick Harty, and of course Philip Fenton has got an entry or two as well. But looking forward to what should be an absolutely brilliant 4 days of racing at the Cotswolds.
Yeah, and I'd be kind of a casual viewer of horse racing. I'd be one of those lads who comes in and watches Cheltenham and the Grand National and wouldn't be tuned in to the rest of the racing seasons. But one of the things that kind of caught my attention as a casual viewer was Constitution Hill and what's going to happen with Constitution Hill. Now, he's not going to be running at Cheltenham, but what are kind of the big kind of storylines going in here to Cheltenham this week?
Yeah, well, I suppose, look, the storylines have been the likes of Constitution Hill not taking his place in the Champion Hurdle, Galloping the Champ obviously missing out in the Gold Cup. They're the stories that are the disappointing elements of this week's Cheltenham Festival. But then we've got the stories like we've got Lossiemount taking her chance in the Champion Hurdle. We've seen her the last number of years running in the Mayor's Hurdle. She's now going up, getting the £7 allowance tomorrow, taking on the new line in the feature on Tuesday. Brighter Days Ahead, who beat Lossiemount at Leopardstown last time out at the DRF. It's a fascinating Champion Hurdle on the opening day's action. And Lossiemount has been the one really for all the support throughout the week. Was 5-2. That drifted and now is a 7-4, very strong favourite for the Champion Hurdle on the opening day. So that's a cracker. And then you're looking at Willie Mullins and Gordon Elliott to be probably the top two Irish trainers. There's a big battle there. But Willie Mullins, many would have said this season going through the year that his horses haven't fired the way they would have expected. But look, he'd 4 winners during the week at Thurles, and I think that was a real warning sign for the rest of the brigade that Willie Mullins has a strong team going across. He's massive chances right throughout the week. Kopek, the Boers, there's so much talk about this horse to win the Arkle. That's the 2 o'clock race tomorrow. He's up against the Lamba. There's not much separating the top two in the betting there, but for me, if Kopek the Boer turns up, I'd be putting him forward as probably one of the best bets of the week on the card at Cheltenham. I think he's a really, really talented star, and if the rumblings are right from Close Sutton that what's coming out about this fella, I think he'll be hard beat on the opening day, Paul. Yeah,
and in terms of weather-wise and the going and all that, how's that looking at the minute?
Yeah, look, looking for Tuesday's going, it's like soft, good in places, and expecting some rain then to come in between this and the end of the week. So it could actually, make a change to it. But again, it all depends on whether that forecast rain is going to come or not. And, I suppose one horse, we were talking about a Tipperary connection, former Tipperary manager Nicky English, of course, he's got the devil who runs at the Albert Bartlett on Friday. He's trained down in County Wexford by Paul Nolan, and there's a good syndicate of lads stuck in this fella, and he's really improved throughout the season. He'll be wearing the blue and gold colours and the Albert Bartlett on Friday at Cheltenham, and there'll be a huge roar if he's going to get the business done. He'll be up against the likes of Dr. Steinberg from Willie Mullins' team, but he certainly has deserved his chance to go across after his win at Doncaster last time out, which was, of course, a double on the day for Paul Nolan, with Feet of a Dancer winning on the card as well. That she takes her chance in the Stairs hurdle on Thursday. But the devil, has come in for plenty of support. He's second favourite currently for the Albert Bartlett in around a mark of 4-1.
Well, that's a brilliant bit of information there. Nick English involved in that one. Obviously, the big one at Cheltenham is the Gold Cup. How's that kind of fixing up this year?
Yeah, look, it's again a fascinating Gold Cup this year, and I think when you look at the what's left in the Gold Cup, obviously Gallopin des Champs was a huge blow that he wasn't lining up. He hadn't won this season. He's picked up a knock, but you're looking at the race on Friday. Last year's winner, I know the way you're thinking. Like if he comes out and wins the Gold Cup on Friday, I'll tell you what, it'll be some training performance, because he's formed, look, let's be honest and call it as it is. It hasn't been anything great so far this season, but I know the way you're thinking. If he comes back and runs like he did last year in Cheltenham, he was a brilliant winner of the Gold Cup. JP McManus has two left in the field. Spillane Tower as well for Jimmy Mangan. What a story that would be if the man from Connacht in County Cork get the job done there. And then you've got the Jukebox Man, of course, owned by Harry Redknapp. We all know him from the world of football, and he's really passionate about the sport of horse racing. He loves his National Hunt racing. The Jukebox Man was a brilliant winner at Kempton at Christmas, of course. He won the King George. It was a fascinating race. There was a nose between himself, Banbridge, and Gaelic Warrior. And they all reoppose again on Friday. Banbridge 25-1 for Joseph O'Brien. Gaelic Warrior now most likely going to be the mounted Paul Townend for the feature, who was second in that Leopardstown last time behind Factifile, who is going to run in the Ryanair. So it's a fascinating race, the Gold Cup, and it's open. The betting would suggest that it's open 7-2. I could see maybe you going off 9-2 joint favourites for a Gold Cup on Friday, and it really all depends on what comes in for the strong support. I wouldn't have a strong opinion to pick any one particular runner. If I was to have one play in the Gold Cup at the moment as it stands, the 7-year-old Django Bay for Nicky Henderson and Nico de Boinville finished fourth in that King George at Kempton. This will be a much stiffer test, and I think Django Bay will be very well suited, so I wouldn't be one bit surprised. And then you've got the Horticuleurs, the Irish Grand National winner from last year for Rebecca Curtis. He's been very good this season. He hasn't done an awful lot wrong. Won the Welsh National at Chepstow on the 27th of December. Won at Newbury, very impressive last time. So it has a cracking look to it. Dan and Harry Skelton, they've got Ray Dawning, who might have ran her strongest the last time, but I wouldn't be surprised if she'll bounce back as well. So as you can see from the way I've gone down through the runners, you can make a case for 7 or 8 of these to have really live chances in the Gold Cup.
Yeah, well, that's a good sign anyway in terms of an entertaining race. I'd say people leaned into the radio there when you said, I have if I had to have one fancy. But you mentioned kind of some of the English trainers there. It's been kind of fairly dominated by Ireland trainers, and particularly Willie Mullins and the likes in the last few years. Is that gap going to close at all, or where do you see kind of that playing out?
Well, I think this year going into Cheltenham, as I've mentioned to you already, that Willie Mullins' form maybe leading into Cheltenham might not have been as dominant as has been in other years. So, but that's something that you've got to draw a line under when it comes to Willie Mullins in Cheltenham. But I do think there'll be a much stronger challenge for the home side of Cheltenham this year. You've got the likes of No Drama this end for Paul Nicholls. He's put out the rumblings that he thinks he could be as good as Denman. That's a brave statement to make. He's unbeaten in his career so far. Nicky Henderson has some massive chances. Lolamba. He's got Django Bay, who I've mentioned in the Gold Cup. So the jukebox man for Ben Pauling as well. So they've got really strong chances, and the Skelton brothers, Dan and Harry, they'll be hoping to have a couple of winners this week as well at the festival. So in the battle for the Prestbury Cup, I would still expect Ireland to train the most winners through the course of the week. But I'd say it could be much, much tighter than maybe people would expect for the week ahead.
Yeah, well, really looking forward to the week's racing ahead. Starts, of course, tomorrow at 1:20. David Byrnes, as always, thanks a million for joining us on the show.
Thank you very much, Paul.
The Tip FM Sports Star of the Month with the Talbot Hotel Clonmel. Multi-award winning wedding specialists with state-of-the-art leisure facilities and spa with food served daily.
The Tip FM Sports Star of the Month.
Get your nominations in now.
Yeah, nominations to Sportstar at tipfm.com. We're going to switch to the world of soccer now, and Barry Ryan joins me on the line. Barry, how are you?
How are you, Ronan?
Not Ronan now. This is Paul talking to you.
Paul, how are you?
I'm good,
You've
Barry.
been called worse.
I sure have, yeah. FAI Junior Cup games over the weekend. We had TSDL Premier League games, Tipperary Cup quarterfinals. It was a busy one. What was kind of taking your eye over the weekend?
Yeah, look, I think the standout result was St. Michael's up in 2 Mile Burris. I suppose, look, those two have plenty of history over the last few months with Burris beating them in the Tipperary Cup final. And they play each other in the Tipperary Cup, the league, and obviously this weekend's FAI Junior Cup, all in the next 3 or 4 weeks. So it felt like a massive game in New Hill. And probably I'm not going to go as far as say 2 Burris were favourites, but I think a lot of people felt they had a huge opportunity to back up the Tipperary Cup final and back up their league win against St. Michael's and get a third win against them within the space of 12 months, which I would say is the first time that would have ever happened. But look, St. Michael's bared their teeth, went up to New Hill and had a massive result after going 1-0 down. 1-0 down at half time. I think the free kick from Louis Coughlin, I think a lot of people saw it on social media over the weekend as a 40-yard screamer in off the crossbar. But St. Michael's regrouped and produced a massive second half performance and turned the game around and won 3-1.
Yeah, that's going to be a huge momentum builder, I'd imagine, for St. Michael's. The other results, Bancha Celtic 1, Peak Villa 2. So Peak Villa not getting it all their own way looking at that result. Yeah,
look, and you know what? Massive credit to Bancha. There was a lot of familiar faces. Darren McGrath, Tony Egan were in the side, Reece Byron. And when they have bodies like that in and they're at home, they can be a game for anybody. And look, to be fair to Peak Villa, their bench was loaded in terms of Ronan Maguire, Dale Lucknan, Michael Quinlan were all on the bench. So in terms of maybe it wasn't the strongest starting 11 that they'd possibly have available. But look, they got the job done, and fair play to Bancha. They kept them honest as well, and it was a good cup fight.
Dunno Hill 1, Wilderness 0, and Mullinahone 1, Clonmel Town 1. Clonmel Town winning 7-6 on penalties there. So I know you have particular interest in that one. Is that, Mullinahone are in the Division 2 of the TSCL, so 2 tiers below Clonmel Town. And was this a kind of a get out of jail result for Clonmel?
Yeah, look, I think that's fair. And I think, you know what, I think Ian Cleary and the players probably deserve a lot of credit, because after the couple of weeks that they've had and trying to absorb relegation and everything that's happened, and even before they kicked off, Castletown had won in the league, which mathematically confirmed Clonmel Town would be going down. There was a lot of excuses and stuff there that maybe the players could have went to a really tricky, tough away FAI Cup game in Mullinahone and got turned over and just kind of compounded what's been a miserable season. But to be fair, despite going 1-0 down, they showed a bit of character. Michael O'Sullivan equalised and they got themselves through on penalties. And look, I think lads like Michael O'Sullivan deserve an awful lot of credit, because himself, Stephen Kelly and a few others, Ian Healy, have stayed turning up. They put the shoulder to the wheel. And look, we're going to need guys like that in the club over the next 12 months to get them back up. And look, I think it would have been very, very easy to feel sorry for themselves away in Mullinahone and 1-0 down. So huge credit to the group to get themselves into the next round. Yeah,
I wasn't sure, was that Castletown result, 2-1 winners over Kerr Park in the Premier League, was that enough to confirm Clonmel are gone down? But I suppose it's something you've been expecting over the course of the last few weeks with results against Clonmel Celtic and the likes in the last few weeks. So now that it's official, I suppose everything is building now towards next season and trying righting maybe the wrongs of Clonmel Town's season in 2025-26.
Yeah, look, I suppose, it's one of those, the magnitude of Clonmel Town going down is not lost on any of us. 16 times champions, one of the most famous clubs in Tipperary soccer. It's a huge blow. But look, at the end of the day, it's about regrouping now. It's about bringing through a lot of younger players. The first division might be a better environment for some of those players to come in and cut their teeth. And you've just got to turn it into a positive now. It is what it is. You've got to rebuild, get the young players in. learn from mistakes of the past and drive forward, because at the end of the day, no club is ever too big to go down. We're looking at Tottenham in the Premier League this year and thinking, is it possible that it could happen to them? So it's never beyond any club. So it is what it is now, and it's about driving forward, and it's about taking the positives now and the learnings from the experience.
Yeah, and in the Tipperary Cup quarter-final, Clonmel Celtic won, Galbally 3, so Galbally seem to be having a great season.
Yeah, look, that's another massive result. And it's probably going to lead a lot of people to ask questions about the state of football in Clonmel at the moment, especially with Wilderness being beaten as well. It's probably a difficult period, and maybe it's a discussion for another night. But I remember in my playing days, Carrick United were winning FAI Junior Cups, Munster Junior Cups, and even a Munster Senior Cup. And Carrick have really struggled in latter years now in terms of amazing facilities, but no success on the pitch. And now we're looking across Clonmel, who have obviously contributed so much to CSDL, with Clonmel Celtic, with Clonmel Town, with Old Bridge. At one point there was 3 or 4 of them all in the Premier League. And look, it's really, really tough trying times and testing times for football in Clonmel at the moment.
Yeah, and just before we finish up, there's a massive NTNDL Premier Division title race brewing in the north of the county after the results over the weekend, as BT Harps had the chance to go top on Friday night. They were beaten 1-0 away to Moneygall. Then they were back in action on Sunday, and they were held to a draw 2-2, and that was against Ardcroney, and Shinrone kept up their end of the bargain. They bet Ballymackey 4-2. So there's kind of a three-way, 3 teams that can win the league here with a couple of games to go in Moneygall, BT Harps and Shinrone. I think there's 3 games to go there. So very exciting times in the NTNDL Premier Division. But finally for yourself, Barry, you're Cork City women's manager, and the league finally, I suppose, I'd imagine for yourself, gets up and running next Saturday, so against Shamrock Rovers. So first of all, best of luck, and how are you set for that?
Yeah, look, it's a huge test for us in the opening day to be in Turner's Cross against Shamrock Rovers. Shamrock Rovers are a lot of people's probably dark horse to win the league this year. They were 5th last season. They signed Ellen Malloy, who a lot of people would be familiar with, an Irish senior international. So look, I suppose we're a very young side, but I suppose there's no pressure on us. Shamrock Rovers will be overwhelming favourites, and what we're probably looking for is, can we produce a really, really big performance and maybe show something that would make people think, right, there could be something coming in the next few weeks. But it's a big challenge for us, and look, I think we're all excited. Excitement is probably the word really for the week. We've been building for the last 9 weeks, and I'm hoping we're going to show something on the pitch on Saturday, something that we can build on in the weeks to come.
Well, very best of luck, Barry. Thanks for joining us on the show.
Thanks a million, Paul.
That's Barry Ryan. As we finish up here on this week's Extra Time, Ronan Quirke will be back next Monday, and very many thanks to our producer Ian O'Connor on this evening's show. For myself, Paul Carroll, that's all for this evening.